Thou shalt have one very similar, if not exactly same." She did not mind the mess, nor the hammering and noise. He was busy and happy. But in the 7th month, when she was brushing his Sunday coat, she felt papers in the breast pocket, and, seized with a sudden curiosity, took them out to read. He very rarely wore the frock coat he was married in, and it had not occurred to her before to feel curious concerning the papers. They were the bills of the household furniture, still unpaid. "Look here," she said at night, after he was washed and had had his dinner. "I found these in the pocket of your wedding coat. Haven't you settled the bills yet?" "No, I haven't had a chance." "But you told me all was paid. I had better go into Nottingham on Saturday and settle them. I don't like sitting on another man's chairs and eating from an unpaid table." He did not answer. "I can have your bank book, can't I?" "Thou can have it, for what good it'll be to thee." "I thought—" she began. He had told her he had a good bit of money left over, but she realized it was no use asking questions. She sat rigid with bitterness and indignation. The next day she went down to see his mother. "Didn't you buy the furniture for Walter?" she asked. "Yes, I did," tartly retorted the elder woman. "And how much did he give you to pay for it?" The elder woman was stung with fine indignation. £80, if you're so keen on knowing," she replied. £80? But there are £42 still owing." "I can't help that." "And where has it all gone?" "You'll find all the papers, I think, if you look. Beside £10 as he owed me, and £6 is the wedding cost down here." £6! echoed Gertrude Morel. It seemed to her monstrous that, after her own father had paid so heavily for her wedding, £6 more should have been squandered in eating and drinking at Walter's parents' house at his expense. "And how much has he sunk in his houses?" she asked. "His houses? Which houses?" Gertrude Morel went white to the lips. He had told her the house he lived in, and the next one, was his own. "I thought the house we live in—" she began. "They're my houses, those two," said the mother-in-law. "And not clear, either. It's as much as I can do to keep the mortgage interest paid." Gertrude sat white and silent. She was her father now. "Then we ought to be paying you rent," she said coldly. "Walter is paying me rent," replied the mother. "And what rent?" asked Gertrude. 6 and 6 a week," retorted the mother. It was more than the house was worth. Gertrude held her head erect, looked straight before her. "It is lucky to be you," said the elder woman bitingly, "to have a husband as takes all the worry of the money and leaves you a free hand." The young wife was silent. She said very little to her husband, but her manner had changed towards him. Something in her proud, honourable soul had crystallized out, hard as rock. When October came in, she thought only of Christmas. 2 years ago, at Christmas, she had met him. Last Christmas she had married him. This Christmas she would bear him a child. "You don't dance yourself, do you, missus?" asked her nearest neighbour, in October, when there was great talk of opening a dancing class over the Brick and Tile Inn at Bestwood. "No, I never had the least inclination to," Mrs. Morel replied. "Fancy, and how funny as you should have married your Mester. You know he's quite a famous one for dancing." "I didn't know he was famous," laughed Mrs. Morel. "Yea, he is, though. Why, he ran that dancing class in the Miners' Arms club room for over 5 year." "Did he?" "Yes, he did." The other woman was defiant. "And it was thronged every Tuesday, and Thursday, and Saturday, and there was carryings on, according to all accounts." This kind of thing was gall and bitterness to Mrs. Morel, and she had a fair share of it. The women did not spare her at first, for she was superior, though she could not help it. He began to be rather late in coming home. "They're working very late now, aren't they?" she said to her washerwoman. "No later than they allers do, I don't think. But they stop to have their pint at Ellen's, and then they get talking, and there you are. Dinner's stone cold, and it serves 'em right." "But Mr. Morel does not take any drink." The woman dropped the clothes, looked at Mrs. Morel, then went on with her work, saying nothing. Chapter 1